Welcome all. I am Shell and I'm here to talk to you about mental health. I'm going to share my story and some top tips as well. One caveat though is that I'm not a clinician and I'm here to share my story from a personal perspective in the hope that it might help you. During my talk, I do cover the topic of death in the family, so if anyone feels uncomfortable, please do feel free to drop out and I'll give you a heads up when I'm nearing that point. I've had many things said about me, and in the past, and you'll see as we go forward that it's a different story with what's going on inside. There's many types of mental health problems, such as anxiety and panic attacks, depression, eating disorders, psychosis, PTSD, to just name a few. And you can find out more about all mental health conditions on a number of websites, such as the NHS Every Mind Matters and the charity Mind. Whilst challenging stigma of mental health has reached millions of people, many still don't consider mental health relevant to them. Many don't believe mental health problems are likely to affect them or the people that they know, including those that they work with. You might be sat there thinking, mental health doesn't really apply to me. I used to really think the same, but think again. When we actually hear the words mental health, we actually respond as if we have all heard mental illness, and the associations with that appear to be quite negative. We all have mental health. It is an essential component of positive health and well-being. Mental Health for England often say that there is no health overall without mental health. The state of our mental health both influences and is influenced by everything around us. So how we think, feel, and behave will demonstrate our state of mental health, and equally how we are feeling will influence how we perceive the past and the future, how we see ourselves and other people and the world around us. Our mental health also influences our ability to cope with the ups and downs of life, with small change, but also really big, like the pandemic, the restrictions we all face, and the lives we are emerging from as we look into this new world. It's also our ability to cope with stress, change, and uncertainty. The facts, though. Did you know that 1 in 4 of us will experience a mental health problem in any given year? 1 in 6 people report experiencing a common mental health problem, like anxiety and depression, in any week in England. On this screen, there are 60 of people icons. Of any group of 60, there may be 15 who are suffering. So think about your colleagues, your friends, and your family. How many are in your team? Do you check in with your colleagues, friends, and family? How are your colleagues acting? Do they seem different? Listen to their response when you asked how they were. Did they really sound fine or okay? Did their tone of voice sound all right? Was it trembling, shaky, or a little bit withdrawn? Has their behaviour changed? And really, would you even notice? Do you really understand a situation, or do you just assume based on your own stereotype of something? Do you ask how a colleague, friend, or family were, and their response is, I'm fine, but you're not convinced? But did you really give them the time to respond, or did you just expect a quick answer? 9 in 10 people with mental health problems have experienced stigma. On this screen, again, there are 60 people icons, and of any group of 60, there may be 45 who have a mental health problem and have experienced stigma. So again, think about your colleagues, your friends, and your family. Having negative stigma attached to mental health can be why people are so afraid to speak out. No one should have to fear being treated differently because of a mental health problem. Whilst I identify as a female, let's not forget men. Women tend to open up and talk to others more, and men tend not to, and they bottle it up. Remember the war mentality of keep calm and carry on? How many times have you heard man up and get on with it, said by mostly our male figureheads in our families? That has a direct impact to men and women as we all grow. We all need to look after each other. We're human, we have worries, issues, and concerns, and should never be afraid to reach out. Men, please do reach out. You're not alone. Reach out to a friend, colleague, or family member. We all need help. Our shoulders are not always large enough to carry all that we do. How are you feeling right now? The chances are that you may know of those who have experienced mental health problems, but more likely you don't. Mental health problems are not necessarily visible, and many can be scared to talk about it because the stigma is related to mental health. It is a lot harder to put into words what's wrong when it's a mental problem. Think about the last time you went to a doctor. It's easy to talk about pain when it's physical, isn't it? So, what's my story? In 2006, I was 19 and I was signed off with acute work related stress. I shook a lot to the point I felt like my bones were vibrating. I didn't want to eat or drink and I wanted to sleep and stay in bed. I didn't really understand me and not in the way that I understand myself now. And I'm still growing with that too. I felt numb then, back of everyone and everything. And I decided to try and focus on getting the real me back. And I did that by doing things I liked doing: reading, watching films, sitting in my parents' garden, taking photos, to try and appreciate and notice the world around me. For the next 30 seconds or so, I do talk about the death of a family member, so feel free to drop out if you find this uncomfortable. So in 2015, I was 30 when my dad died suddenly. I was then head of the family to sort everything out. I do have divorced parents, and my dad never had a long-term marriage after that. I saw him dead. He was stood up. I had to sort police, coroners, death certificates, and all sorts after that, not to mention the mountain of paperwork that I had to pick through, and I hadn't done that before. It was actually frightening. It was actually really scary and unreal. And at the time, I worked through it. I had to focus. I wanted to do right by my dad. After all, I am a daddy's girl. Sorting his place out and all the funeral arrangements were just another part of the process. But what I didn't allow time for was to stop, think, and breathe. After all the arranging, planning, and whatnot, and after getting really drunk at his funeral, I realised that I was drinking every day, more than one, for a long time. I felt numb, conflicted, and lost. A colleague recommended speaking to Cruz, who offered bereavement support, and I reached out. It took a while, but I felt like I started to straighten out. The weight on my shoulders was lifting, and the hole in my heart where my dad was smaller. Not that I'd ever want it to go away, but it made things bearable. During those sessions, I also completed a stress and anxiety workshop with Healthy Minds. I learned a lot about myself, how I work as a person, what helps me be better, how I react to things, and what blocks me from being my best. In 2019, I changed job. Here we go again. All of those feelings came back. I spent 7 months in a new job, in tears to and from work, not feeling capable or able to work. My anxiety was causing me so much stress and it was stalling my progress. I kept referring back to my notes made from the counselling and the workshop. I also downloaded the Calm app and I used it every day when I got up to set me off with a good start to the day. But it didn't stop those tears there or back from work. I signed up for the Richmond Fellowship, who are employment counsellors, and I spoke to them. I spoke to my mentor, who at the time was a mental health first aider. Both, for me, I found complemented each other, which I know is not normally recommended. One of my colleagues also helped me as well by just being there, and whilst I was getting upset and overwhelmed, she could spot what was going on and help. There were a fair few times where I had a bit of a breakdown in the office as well. I really felt like she had my corner. Early 2020, my mum is hospitalised and almost dies from COVID. It was a difficult time not having contact with mum so early on in that pandemic, and her being so isolated in hospital. but I'm grateful she survived when we have lost so many in this world because of it. I decided to keep working. I did the Calm app, I practiced mindfulness, continued body balance, and normally would have gone to the gym, but under COVID, went out on my bike to appreciate nature. I stopped and observed my surroundings, the beautiful weather, the lovely fields and animals nearby, the wonderful nature that surrounds all of us. I focused on my garden and I made that my place of peace. When did you last see the sunset and really appreciate it? In late 2020, my dear granddad passed away suddenly, and this tied to the lockdown district restrictions made life incredibly hard in trying to do the usual processes after somebody dies, not to mention being distanced from the family that you need most. But I could pull on my experiences of funeral planning to help my family in making it the best send-off we could. I also learnt new skills in the application of probate, wills, and much more to help in my family's journey. But how did I get by this time? I went off the grid. I didn't want to speak to people, and there's nothing wrong with that, but make sure you check in with yourself and others around you. I focused on self-care. I read a lot of books, watched films, probably escapism more than anything else, but it suited me fine. With the gyms closed, I had no motivation. I don't work out best working out at home, and learn not to give myself a hard time. You know what? The gyms were going to open again, and I'll be able to work on that later. I also took time to slowly go through my granddad's photos, and I still am, to digitise his archive. Without his influence, I wouldn't have spent 11 years as a photographer. In May 2022, my mum and stepdad moved to Devon. I'm in Buckinghamshire. So that was a big period of adjustment. The move itself brought up all sorts of divorced parents' anxiety and fear of abandonment, which did creep in, being a good 4-hour drive away from me. Not to mention the anxiety I felt if they are not well or need help, and I can't be there as fast as I could before, which I'm currently working through because my mum has had a stint in hospital fairly recently. I read books, I did gardening, went to the gym and classes. I referred myself back to counselling. I felt at the time it was good to talk. It's not for everyone, but it works for me. And I realised that it's okay not to be strong all of the time, and it's okay to reach out. I pulled back from everything extra that I was offering in my life to strip it back and make it simple, to allow me to build myself back again. And that worked. May 2023, and right now, I'm still not okay. I've tried everything and sought further help. I do have anxiety and recently diagnosed with depression, and I am on medication. This was a really hard step for me, to beat my own stigma about taking medication, but it was the best option for me. I'm still very much rebuilding, watching films, reading, getting out and about, going for walks and continuing body balance, and it's going to be a long journey. So it's a different picture to the intro quotes that were said about me previously, isn't it? We all have a backstory. I'm also adjusting to the fact that I have changed from preferring extroversion to introversion, which at first I questioned why and tried to understand, but I realised I need to stop comparing myself to what I was doing before and think about, do I like this? Does it feel good? And you know what? It does. It's nice to declutter life just a little bit. And who knows, I might prefer extroversion again at some point, and that's okay. And right now, I love sitting with a blanket, reading a book, with a cup of hot chocolate. Life can be that simple. Each time I've been through trauma, I learned something. I learned how to rebuild. Although I'm very much still rebuilding, and that's going to take a while, each time I felt stronger and a little bit more capable of dealing with it. This isn't something that I saw before, and now I can reflect back on. There are a few key people in my life who helped me cope at the time, who made me feel that it was okay to not be okay, and that I didn't have to put a brave face on or hold back the tears. I actually find a few tears do release me a bit, which is good for the soul, and I hope that I can help others in the way that they help me as well by being there. I've learned to be honest with my feelings and my thoughts, and just when I thought life couldn't throw anything else at me, it does. but it's about how we build after that when we are able to. So this time I wanted to help someone out there. Remember the stats: 1 in 4, 1 in 6, 9 in 10. So if you're thinking, how can I help someone? I can't really help. You really can, and you can help just by checking in. Ask how they are and really listen to how they are, and treat them in the same way as you would anyone else. And please don't judge. Remember I talked about my colleague who was in my corner? That really can be you. But first we have to make sure that you're okay. So let's start with you, and here's some top tips. Number 1, understand and accept the true you. We all respond differently to what life throws at us, and it's important to stop, take stock, and breathe. Think about how you feel. Do you put on a different face for work? Is that the true you? There's no shame in being honest with yourself. Being the true you is not a weakness. It's actually a strength, but it's feeling safe in an environment where you feel you can be exactly that. Number 2, respect yourself and value yourself first. Be kind and respectful to yourself. Think about your skills, your values, and your achievements. You are an awesome human being. Think about your hobbies and your interests, the things that make you happy. Number 3, being mindful can be our own self-stigma. I've felt many times that I don't feel I suffer enough and that I don't deserve help. And this is where I'm trying to challenge myself. By looking at myself with compassion helps free yourself of being judgmental. Number 4, training your inner coach to be your personal coach. Try to stop thinking negatively and try and turn it to a positive. Rather than thinking, I can't do it, try to think, why can't I do it? Because I absolutely can. It takes time, but when you're at the gym and you feel you can't do another 5 minutes, it's amazing what you can do when you push your mind to it. And slowly but surely your inner coach will see that you're more capable. Number 5, trust and good communication are must-haves to a great loving relationship. This applies to both with yourself and all those around you. Try to focus on a solution rather than a problem. Learn to say no. Sometimes what you feel isn't accurate, and this is something I'm consistently doing with myself. Take your thought to court. Why do you feel that way? What evidence is there for you to feel that way? Think about what you like about other people. Learn how they do it and try to emulate them. So we've talked about my experiences, and I wanted to help somebody. So how can you help others? Top tips though to remember. My experience is not your experience. Understanding and accepting experiences that are different or similar to ours. Remember, different experiences shape how we see things. Number 2, empowering your colleague, your friend, your family. Have you let your colleagues know that you can approach you? Have you made yourself easy to approach? Many don't feel they can approach others because they just don't feel valued enough. And you can combat this by spotting changes in their behaviour and checking in. 3, finding a safe space for your colleague, friend, or family member to be in. It's about building that trust and respect for their feelings and time. Try to allow longer than normal. Think about your body language when talking to your colleagues. There's been many times when I've said to my line manager, can I just have a chat for 10 minutes? And actually that's turned into an hour. So allow longer time than you normally would. Number 4, ask twice with interest. How many times have you heard someone say that they're fine or okay, and you didn't really buy it? When you ask twice, you find that it's then you get the honest impression of how they are. If you can see them in person, watch their body reaction. Look at their body language. Listen to their tone of voice. Think about the micro behaviours. So try asking again. I notice you seem really down recently. Are you okay? Or I know you say you're okay, but are you really? Or a bit more informally, no, really, how are you doing? When that individual starts talking about how they're feeling, try and avoid words like, I know what you mean. Because remember the first point, my experience is not your experience. We are all different. So try instead, that sounds tough. Try and empathise a little. Number 5, ask open questions and listen. They can help people open up and shows that you care. So, how does it feel? Or how long have you felt like this? You can also try talking while and doing an activity like making a cup of tea to lighten the conversation and take the pressure off. No one is expecting you to fix it, but being there to listen helps so much. Number 6, don't try and fix it. It can be hard to see someone you care about having a difficult time, but please try and resist the urge to offer quick fixes for what they're going through. Learning to manage or recover from a mental health problem can be a long journey, and for me it certainly is. And they have likely already considered lots of different tools and strategies. Just talking, though, can be really powerful, so unless they've asked for advice directly, it might just be best to listen. Number 7, treat them the same. When someone has a mental health problem, they're still the same person as they were before, and that means when a friend or loved one opens up about mental health, they don't want to be treated differently. If you want to support them, keep it simple and do the things you normally do. Try and be patient, no matter how hard you try. Some individuals might not be ready to talk about what they're going through, and that's okay. The fact that you've tried to talk to them about it makes it easier for them to open up to yourself or someone else another time. It can be really hard for that person to open up, and sometimes the time you decide isn't the right time for them to open up just yet. So consider that as well. Working through the pandemic and into the hybrid way of working, and the new normal plus the additional pressures we all feel is testing for everyone. Things have changed. There are practical things that are different. We may have increased care or responsibilities for friends, relatives, or children, but equally as important, although more invisible, is the cognitive load that all of this has caused. So, for example, we go about our daily business of dealing with work life and private life, and at the same time, a part of our brain is busy trying to understand what does the future look like? And actually, the truth is we don't know. Additionally, thinking about what happened before, as we seem to be returning to a new normal, working through it all showed us the fragility of human life and the uncertainty of the future, which was unfamiliar and frightening. But because of all of that, our resources are a little depleted because a part of our brain is busy doing all of that, whizzing around in our heads, doing that work while we carry on business as usual. And it's no surprise that people can't work out why. They might say they're exhausted and important, and it's really important to learn that context, to not compare yourself to the person you were before, to the plans you had before, to what other people are doing that seems so super efficient. No one knows the challenges that each of us is facing. I've changed as a person, many have, and that's okay. There's no shame in struggling. There's no shame in finding things hard. And there is no shame in reaching out to get the support you need, whatever that is, wherever you need it. No one is perfect. No one is getting it right. We are all doing the best that we are able. And if we talked more and compared less, we would soon see that. When I find I'm struggling with my mental health, I've learned not to pressure myself and be kind. And it's okay to have a down day. And on those days, take the pressure off. Put time aside for self-care after work. So here are two quotes that mean a lot to me, that say a lot. The first is from To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And she says, you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. The second is from Michelle Obama from her book Becoming. Her quote is, if we can open up a little bit more to each other and share our stories, our real stories, that's what breaks down barriers. But in order to do that, you have to believe that your story has value. Be vulnerable. Dare to be vulnerable. If you are struggling or feeling low, talk to a friend, family member, line manager, or colleague, or use any of the services in the next following slides. The chances are you won't be the only one feeling like this, although it can feel like that. You all have a right to be happy. And if you don't feel that, reach out. It's good to find that support. It's good to talk. There's a lot of extra reading out there, so check out the NHS Every Mind Matters websites, the Charity Mind website, your local GP, and reach out to those you feel safe to talk to, be it friend, family, or colleague. If Gents, if you want a bit of male support out there and you don't want people to know you, try these places. So Boys Get Sad Too and Andy's Man Club. And for all of us generally, if you want to reach out to folks who don't know you, here are some places to try. Try the Mind website, try the Campaign Against Living Miserably, the Calm Zone, and give us a shout. All of those, you can reach out to volunteers for help and assistance and advice on the websites. No one should feel ashamed to talk about mental health. If you need help right now, please call the Samaritans. They're on 116 123. And if you're not sure how to start a conversation, there's lots of fantastic resources on the Time to Talk Day website. So do go on there if you want to try to encourage that conversation wherever you are. But above all, if you do need help and support, please reach out for it. Thank you ever so much for listening. Take care, look after yourselves, be kind, and have a good day. Thank you.